Hi everyone, very good afternoon and welcome back to CGB Mentors. So from today onwards we are starting your crash course for EPFO, right? And with the subject accountancy and auditing, तो पहले हमने चुना है accountancy to go with, right? You might have seen the PYQs discussion which we have had in the last week, right? And in that particular discussion, अगर आपने notice किया हो that questions from the accounting sections, they range from certain topics, right? And that becomes very predictable also. जैसे कि number 1 is your AS basics. अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स में से बहुत ही बेसिक क्वेश्चन हमने देखे हैं, purely based on concept. You need not to know the detailed accounting standard for that. If you know the crux, if you know the skeleton, if I should say so, then you will be good to go for your EPFO examination. ठीक है, तो पहली चीज़ तो हो गया कि हमारे अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड का बेसिक. बट फ्रॉम वेयर दीज बेसिक्स कम फ्रॉम, ये बेसिक्स आपके कहाँ से आते हैं? सो नंबर 2 इज योर अकाउंटिंग कॉन्सेप्ट्स and accounting principles. This is also very important. In the PYQ discussion that we had, अगर आपने PYQ discussion देखा हो, एक चीज़ आपने notice की होगी उसमें, that accounting principles with respect to AS1, it was very prominently asked. ठीक है, बहुत अच्छे से इसको पूछा गया था. And over here they were not expecting कि आपको सारा nitty gritties याद हो. 3 बातें लिखी हुई हैं, उतना ही एक्सपेक्टेशन था. That's what they have expected from you, that okay, if we have written these 3 statements, do you know about it or not, right? That's it. Clear, simple, straightforward question. Now when I discuss the PYQ session with you, I also told you that if you are somebody who's not very willing to go for a crash course because of any XYZ reasons, then you have to be very thorough with the class 11th and certain portions, I'm not saying completely, but certain portions of your class 12th accountancy book. ठीक है, 11th तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है और 12th के आपको बेसिक्स जो हैं वो पता होने चाहिए. certain portions, not everything is important over here. So these were the sources. Now why I am saying class 11th? क्योंकि class 11th में अगर आप देखेंगे trial balance has been a favorite. ठीक है, trial balance has been a favorite of EPFO. इससे तो क्वेश्चन पूछा ही गया है. And now the people who have studied accountancy in their graduation or any other exams, right, in the 11th or 12th, they'll agree with me कि अगर आप ट्रायल बैलेंस की बात कर रहे हैं तो do you know about the rules of accounting, right? Do you know about the classification of accounting? Do you know about the accounting principles? Do you know about the ledger, right? तो क्या आपको ये सारी चीज़ें पता हैं? If yes, then you will be able to tackle with the trial balance. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं कि ट्रायल बैलेंस एक चैप्टर है, हमने ट्रायल बैलेंस चैप्टर को उठाया, पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया and done. No, that is not the correct approach. If you are somebody who's preparing on your own, अगर आप खुद से भी prepare कर रहे हैं, remember that start with the basics first. I have taken this particular class earlier also in another regulatory body examination, but I am not repeating it again. मैं उसको repeat नहीं कर रही हूँ. I have tried to go with the basics first for you guys in the EPFO examination, so that when you are doing this from the scratch, see, in regulatory body examination the tendency to ask questions is a bit different. और जब हम APFC या EO के एग्जाम के बारे में बात करते हैं, so they focus on the basics. For example, उन्होंने कोई आपको एक एग्जाम्पल पिक कर लिया उन्होंने, right? अकाउंटेंसी की बुक से उन्होंने कोई एग्जाम्पल पिक कर लिया, and now with the help of that example they are asking you a question, right? एग्जाम्पल बेस्ड क्वेश्चन भी पूछे जाते हैं. द क्वेश्चंस लेवल इज नॉट टफ, इट इज सिंपल, कॉन्सेप्चुअल, बेसिक लेवल. जैसे कि मान लो आपको बोल दिया कि प्रोविजन फॉर डाउटफुल डेट कितना आएगा, Now in order to calculate provision for doubtful debt, you need to have a knowledge of ledger, कि ledger में कैसे flow कर रहा है, debit credit कहाँ पे position किया हुआ है, then only you will be able to solve it, right? So during this crash course, what our aim is going to be is, number one, the basics, right? So I will be starting from the chapter 1 through right from the scratch, right? And there would be nothing that would be left, ठीक है? कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं होगा जो हम नहीं मतलब जो हम नहीं करेंगे, राइट? ऐसा मैं बोलने वाली थी कि हम नहीं छोड़ेंगे, ऐसा तो सारा छोड़ देंगे. Anyway, so we'll be doing everything that is important, and obviously the important chapters would be given more attention to, right? And throughout this particular course, I would like your maximum interaction. If you don't know something, please be vocal about it, right? Do ask questions. Exam related questions would be appreciated, not the notification related questions, right? So yes, good afternoon. चलिए अब हम start करते हैं introduction to accounting. Now number one thing is let's not start from the boring PDF where I am reading and you are listening, ठीक है? तो यहाँ से हम शुरू नहीं करते हैं. We will go and we will first build our concept, right? And then we will come to कि हाँ भाई basics बाकी की चीज़ें क्या होती हैं. Okay, so if you are somebody who has already seen my videos or you have already attended the class, you might be knowing कि अब मैं क्या करने वाली हूँ या मैं क्या बताने वाली हूँ. So anyway, I am assuming that you are all watching for the very first time, so let's start. See, accountancy में okay, why is the language of एक provision related question है. Okay, Jeet, so when we will progress in the class and when I will teach you provision at that particular time, you can ask, right? Or you can just put your question here. At the end of the class, I'll answer your question, ठीक है? Not in the between. I hope you understand. Now, let's see the structure, how it goes. Fine. So, whenever we talk about accountancy, whenever we talk about commerce, right? Even if you read the newspapers, always they say कि चलो ठीक है, जैसे let's say TCS has posted its quarterly results, right? What do we mean by quarterly results? इसका मतलब क्या है? What are the results that we are awaiting? क्या हम ये बात कर रहे हैं कि पास या फेल होने का रिजल्ट, whether the TCS has cleared the exam or not? Obviously not, right? What we are trying to know is whether this company is profitable or not. Correct? That is the intention. हमने एक business start किया, right? My father became an investor in that particular business. Now he wants to know कि भैया कितना profit कमाया, right? Were you able to earn any kind of profit or not? So that is the basic query anybody will have कि तुम पैसा खर्चा कर रहे हो, you are making the investments, what is something that you are earning, right? So the number one question stands whether your organization is profitable or not. Now tell me, profitability तो चलो ठीक है, हमने दिखा दिया कि बड़ा बहुत profit है. You remember the case of Satyam Computers? Remember the case of Satyam Computers? Now, in a nutshell, if I'll try to explain Satyam Computers में क्या हो रहा था, the problem with Satyam Computers were that they were doing window dressing. Window dressing का मतलब पैसा तुम्हारे पास कुछ नहीं है और तुम उस जीरो के आगे 1 0 लगा के, right, you are doing the window dressing. That means this is you original but you are portraying, ठीक है? आप अपने आप को पोर्ट्रे कर रहे हो कि नहीं हम तो 100 हैं. Now some of you would say कि अरे ये तो अच्छी बात है ना, हम मैनिफेस्ट कर रहे हैं. So this manifestation doesn't work when you talk about the accounting, ठीक है? यहाँ पे काम नहीं करता है ये. यहाँ पर क्या काम करता है? So we want books of accounts which are true and fair in nature, ठीक है? True and fair in nature. क्या आपको पता है जब ऑडिटिंग होती है, whenever any auditor does the auditing, this is what he is seeking: truth and fairness in the books of accounts which are prepared. I repeat, truth and fairness in the books of accounts that we are preparing. तो अब ये truth और fairness कैसे पता चलेगी भाई? So as I have told you, we'll progress with the example that I have given you. We have started a business and my father would like to know that the money I have invested in your business, how much of that money is left with you, right? And what you did with the money that I have given you, which is not obviously right now there with you, right? So where have you spent that money which does not belong to you right now? Correct. So over here, next thing is, next question, what is the position of your assets and liabilities? This is what anybody जिसके भी पास दिमाग है, a sane person would like to know. ठीक है? So Mukesh, I'll request you to stay on the video and somebody from the team reply for that. Okay? So now look at it. These are the twin objectives that I am having. ये मेरे दो objectives हैं of starting a business. Number one, the business should be profitable. Number two, I would like to know what is the position of my assets and liabilities. अब ये assets क्या होता है? Assets is something which belongs to me, which is going to be with me for a longer time period. Liabilities means I have to pay that amount to somebody else. ठीक है, किसी और को पे करना है. So now, if you are totally from non-commerce background, still I assume, चाहे आप कितना ही ऐसे कहते हैं ना कि कितना ही किसी cave life में जी रहे हो, but still you would be knowing these two names, right? You might have heard these two names, and this is called as P&L account, right? P&L account, profit and loss account, and this we call as balance sheet. Balance sheet means क्या? Whatever amount you have spent, please tell us a statement for that, right? हमें एक statement चाहिए that what are the assets as on date with you, what are the liabilities as on date with you, what is the profit that you have earned. So this is my, yes, this is my primary objective of doing a business. और पूरी accountancy में, in the whole process of your accounting syllabus, whatever we will read, concept, principles, right? और let's say PYQs में आपने देखा होगा FIFO basis पे calculation, right? और we might be talking about the accounting standards. कुछ भी बात कर रहे हो, ultimately everything comes down to these two statements. मैं जो भी बनाऊंगी, right? I am preparing ledger, so in order to get these two statements, I'll teach you accounting principles, I'll teach you journal entries, right? Then I'll teach you ledger. After that, we will progress to trial balance, right? And finally, this is the basics part. This is the basics part. Once we will be done with all these things, after that, once you have prepared the trial balance, now this is your final thing, right? This progress is like this. And with the help of trial balance, you can prepare P&L account. With the help of trial balance, you will ultimately prepare the balance sheet, right? So this is how the progression looks like. ठीक है? Once we have reached to final accounts, then we will just make it a bit more complicated. तब हम फिर partnership and all पे भी move करेंगे. थोड़ा बहुत basics वहाँ का भी हमें करना है, right? And this will be the whole structure about your accountancy topic. Okay, now before now I'll start with the other things, right? But first I will like you to introduce with some basic terms, and meanwhile I'll just request you, don't you miss any particular class. Even if you are missing any class, don't jump onto the next live class we are conducting. First I will request you to finish the previous classes, because otherwise your link would be broken. ठीक है? And till this point I am assuming there is nothing to ask, because बहुत ही आसान भाषा में बताया है that what we are going to do. Now once I have talked about the balance sheet and P&L, let's start with the basics. So number one is the entity. Now as soon as I tell you an entity, there is an accounting concept which pops up in my head. ठीक है? There is an accounting concept which pops up in my head and it is called as separate business entity. ठीक है? इसको accounting entity का भी concept कहा जाता है. Now इसका example क्या है? Accounts of Super Bazaar, they are maintained separately from the personal accounts. For example, suppose there is a person, Mr. A. Mr. A has multiple businesses. इनके अलग अलग businesses हैं. इनके he is in basically an octopus. ये शेयर बाजार में भी आपको मिलेंगे. He is there in jewelry business as well. He is there in the real estate as well, right? So he is an octopus, right? Now what anybody would suggest, अगर जो भी कोई इंसान जिसको accounting standards या accounting concepts नहीं पता है, what that person will suggest to Mr. A? He will say, no issues, just combine all your businesses and we'll prepare accounts in just one books. Is that right thing to do? क्या सारे accounts एक साथ prepare करना सही है? The answer is no. The identity of your business is separate from the owner. बिजनेस की आइडेंटिटी, ओनर की आइडेंटिटी दो अलग चीज हैं. यू आर डूइंग सेपरेट काइंड ऑफ बिजनेसेस, प्रिपेयर देयर सेपरेट अकाउंट. ठीक है? प्रिपेयर देयर सेपरेट अकाउंट. नाउ हियर मी आउट वेरी केयरफुली. Hear me out very carefully. Now in this segment I'll introduce you to one more thing, and I'm hoping that you should know this concept from before, from earlier days itself, but still if you don't know, just listen to me very carefully. Separate business entity concept tells you, सेपरेट बिजनेस एंटिटी कॉन्सेप्ट टेल्स यू कि अगर आपके मालिक ने आपको कोई पैसा दिया है, राइट, if the owner has given you some amount of money that belongs to the owner and that is why it's a liability for the business. business को हम अलग मान रहे हैं, owner को हम अलग मान रहे हैं. if owner has given something to the business, right, that thing has to be returned to the owner and that is why it's a liability for the business. तो अब अगर सवाल आया, why the capital contributed by the owner is a liability? Because it belongs to the owner. And the concept behind this is separate business entity concept. इसके पीछे क्या concept है आपका? Separate business entity concept. Understood? Example भी दिया हुआ है. Now let's talk about the transaction. Now every business is started because of transactions. हम चाहते तो हैं. So one day I was teaching in a course, right, and I don't know, the concerned person might also be watching this video, so I'm not taking your name, but I asked them that what kind of business they'd like to pursue, किस तरीके का business वो करना चाहेंगे if not this exam, right? So he said that I would like to open a restaurant. ठीक है, एक restaurant open करना चाहेंगे. ठीक है. So now when I say that, we don't just want to open a restaurant, we also want that customers should come. ठीक है, customers आने चाहिए. customers आएंगे तो क्या करेंगे? transaction करेंगे, right? And that transactions, one by one, all those transactions is something that give your accounts final shape. कस्टमर्स नहीं आएंगे, सेल नहीं होगी, सेल नहीं होगी, कॉस्ट नहीं खर्चा होगी, राइट? If there would be no sales, no cost, how you would be able to find out the profit, right? So that's also a problematic thing. So transactions are important. Now in transactions, in case of business, it could be a cash transaction, it could be a credit transaction, ठीक है? कभी आपके साथ भी ऐसा हुआ होगा that you are visiting a nearby shop, right? And you know the shopkeeper, and you might not be carrying the sufficient cash, ठीक है? आपके पास में sufficient cash नहीं होगा. So that person says that no problem, you can pay me later on, ठीक है? आप बाद में दे सकते हो. अब देखो, उधार उसको ही दिया जाता है जिसके ऊपर भरोसा हो, ठीक है? So in this situation, the transactions in a business can be on cash basis, can be on credit basis. उधार पे भी लिया जा सकता है. Now why this is important? ये इतनी ज़रा सी बात क्यों बता रही हूँ? Which is based on common sense. Because when we will be preparing your ledger and also when I will be teaching you the journal entries, at that particular point of time, you have to remember that when you have to use the cash in bank and when you do not have to use it, ठीक है? कब यूज करना है, कब नहीं यूज करना है, ये हम तब बात करेंगे, ठीक है? चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. Then you have assets. Right now I have told you. Assets का मतलब क्या होता है? This is something which can be expressed in monetary terms, right? So I'll give you there are two features. Correct. So दोस्तों के साथ always credit transactions all are in NPA. Now listen to me over here. In case of assets, I'll like to tell you there are two features of assets. Number one is they are useful for you, useful for your business, right? I have an office and in my office we have an AC installed, ठीक है? एक AC लगा हुआ है. So now that AC is useful for me, right? It is helping me to stay in the office, to work with concentration. तो वो क्या है? मेरी asset हुई, right? And leave the AC, think about a machine. Machine is helping you to do the production, ठीक है? हमने एक आइसक्रीम की दुकान खोली, ठीक है? तो हमारे पास एक मशीन है जिससे हम नेचुरल क्या बोलते हैं, वो फ्रूट्स की आइसक्रीम बनती है ना आजकल, तो वो आइसक्रीम बना पा रहे हैं. So that is also useful for me. So that is my asset. Now number two is this, the line which is in bold is really important. कभी किसी बैलेंस शीट में एम्प्लॉइज को देखा है आपने in form of assets? This is the question I am asking. That is why I have taken a pause. कभी किसी बैलेंस शीट में आपने देखा है कि एम्प्लॉइज को एसेट साइड में लिखा जाए? Guys, do tell me. See, what happens is, in case of your companies, right, employees is something that you cannot measure in monetary terms, ठीक है? आप monetary terms में तो कभी measure नहीं कर सकते हो. Why? Because you don't know the value of someone's life, right? You cannot measure कि nice. अब मैं इसके आगे क्या ही पूछूं, full stop लग जाता है. Anyway, so in case of employees, you cannot measure someone's life, and that principle holds true even in case of insurances as well, ठीक है? अगर आप insurance लेने जाते हैं तब भी. So that is why I am telling you, the assets have two features. It should be useful for you and it can be measured in monetary terms. Employees are my assets, but I cannot measure them in monetary terms, ठीक है? ठीक है? So that is why it is not written in the balance sheet. तो सुभाशीष, क्या कीमत लगाएंगे हम किसी के लाइफ की? नहीं लगा सकते ना. I don't know how much valuable you are. You will say that I have worth in crores, obviously, right? But I don't know. So that is the thing. Anyway, so that was the definition of assets, right? Assets are also of different types, but we will study that in our next class. This is it for the introduction part. Thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you would have understood. And don't forget to like this video and do wait for the next class.